What's up, traders? Today I want us to talk about losing like a fool in the forex market. Let's make it clear, losses are part of the game. In fact, when you're backtesting and building your model, you'll notice even in a profitable system, you still have some stop losses. The only difference is when you're executing real time, you won't be in a position to tell whether these will be a stop loss or a take profit. What matters is, at the end of a long period of time, as you take the same consistent setups, you do have a profitable edge in the market. So by all means, losses are something you should expect in the market. However, not all types of losses are inevitable. In the forex market, we have good losses and bad losses. Now, professional traders are those who only focus on taking good losses, while struggling traders most of the time take both the good losses and the bad losses. And the difference is simple. Good losses are those types of setups that when you look at them after they hit your stop loss, you can almost not change anything about that trade, from the execution to how you manage the trade while the setup was running. In simple terms, it respected your playbook, it was part of your plan. When you look at your backtested data, that's the type of setup that you should be taking consistently. That's a good loss. Bad losses, on the other hand, are these types of trades that they hit your stop loss, and when you look at them, you can easily spot one or two things that you did wrong that could have either assisted you to avoid that loss completely or control how that loss happened. Bad losses happen most of the time because you are trading outside your plan, meaning the type of setups you are taking, you can clearly see that you broke one or two rules. And had you not broken those rules, you wouldn't have taken that setup, meaning you would have avoided that loss. Or sometimes during the trade management while the setup was running, maybe you made a couple of mistakes which made you lose way more on that setup, while you could have controlled the loss to be slightly small. Now let's break this down further. For you to take good losses, it's impossible unless you already have a working system. Because how do you know it's a good loss unless you've backtested, collected data, studied your markets, for you to understand what a good setup looks like versus a bad setup. So this discussion of taking good losses and bad losses doesn't even apply if in the first place you have no edge in the market. This is something we start looking at from the perspective of you've collected data, you've built a model that is profitable, meaning you have an edge in the markets. Despite your losers and your winners, if you keep taking the same types of setups per your playbook, you should be profitable. This again shows you the importance of data collection, that if you've not collected data, you can't even tell the difference between a good trade and a bad trade. And this is one of the reasons why you find yourself frustrated whenever you lose, because you start to think the market is going against you or you just have some bad luck. But it's because you can't account your losers to any trading system. If you have a trading system, it's easy for you to define and understand, I took this loss, but hey, there's nothing I did wrong on this setup. So you can even have the confidence to keep executing. You can't say the same if you're just trading blindly without any collected data that gives you some grounding and confidence as you execute in the market. Assuming you already have a proper edge and you still find yourself taking these types of bad losses, there are probably two things you're struggling with, which is impatience and indiscipline. Now, impatience is simply you've gone for a couple of days without seeing a setup. Then the human nature kicks in and you feel tempted to force a trade. So you see something that looks like a setup, but clearly you know that it's not that type of A+ setup that you would execute any day. But because you have the feeling of missing out from taking trades in the market, you force that execution and eventually you hit a loss. Most of the times when you take that loss, you start regretting and you tell yourself, why did I even take this trade? And that's how you know you took a bad loss. As a trader, you need to work on your level of patience in the market. I've said this before, it's almost impossible for you to become a consistent trader if you don't develop the character of patience. And I'll give you a couple of reasons. The market won't always move the way you want every time. There are seasons where you'll have back-to-back setups which are performing very well, and there are months where you'll hardly find setups. Or you can still find the setups but just finish at a break-even or a negative month, so you don't make any money. See, during this period, you still need to be patient. As a good trader, something I've noticed myself, which has changed over the years, is the ability to just sit outside the market and wait for that right opportunity. Because what this does is simple. When you have the bad seasons where the market is hardly giving you setups or you're not making any money in the market, as a patient trader, you're still able to preserve your capital. Then when you have those months where the markets are now running and you're able to have those back-to-back profits, you can still make consistent payouts. The opposite is true for struggling traders who are impatient. During slow seasons, they try to force setup, and this is the time where most traders blow their account. Whether it's a prop farm challenge, you lose a couple of them, maybe you go broken, now you can't afford to buy more challenges. Then 1-2 months later, the markets pick up and now you are seeing those nice opportunities. But guess what? You no longer have an account to execute on because you blew all your accounts accounts, or if you were funded, you blew all of them and now you've started to take the challenge all over again from phase one. For you to master this level of patience, you just need to make peace with the fact that the markets are seasonal. Not every month will be as profitable as you think. And as you collect data, try to understand the cycle of profitability of your system. Let me give you a breakdown of how my system looks like. See, from my data, I've come to notice something. Out of 12 months in a year, most of the time I'll be profitable for about 8 to 9 months alone. And the rest 3 to 4 months will either be break-even months or could be a small losing month. So maybe I can make profit for 8 months, then 2 months will be break-even, 2 months will be losing months. But you see, at the end of the year, I'm still profitable. Quarter by quarter, I'm always profitable. And the interesting thing about this performance is it's randomly distributed. So when I tell you I can make money for 9 months in a year, it doesn't mean I make money from January to August or September. You can't tell which month you'll make money, which month will be a break-even. But year by year, that is how I've noticed the distribution of my performance. I've also come to notice that sometimes I have a slow month either during the beginning of the year, mid-year, or towards the end, mostly in the fourth quarter. So you see, these things give me some sort of expectation such that even if I find myself with a 2% month or a 3% month, it doesn't stress me so much. And if you followed up with my performance, you've seen that most of the time, even my challenges, I try to pass within a quarter, because I understand I might have a 2% month, a 3% month, then the next month I get a 9 or 10%. However, none of this is in my control. Making peace with that and understanding your performance cycles over the years based on your data will assist you to come to the markets psychologically prepared. But if you come to the market with the idea that I should just make money every day, pass my challenge every month, you easily find yourself being impatient. So again, this is another reason to explain to you how data collection is important, because by understanding that distribution of your performance, it allows you to be psychologically prepared. Hence, you'll make less emotional decisions. Before we continue, let me introduce you to Prop Farm Match. This is the place where you find data across different farms. Before you buy that Prop Farm challenge, you want to be aware of the trading conditions in terms of the spread, slippage. You want to be aware of the trading rules. This is where Prop Farm Match comes in. They offer detailed information across different farms. You can compare to see the prices, the types of challenges, whether it's a 1 or 2 step. You can check reviews from verified traders who have done payouts. If you're looking for a farm with discounts, you will find them listed with the best offers. And most importantly, you can customize your trading challenge until you find the company that suits you. For example, maybe you want a 1-step challenge, a company that allows crypto trading, allows news trading, weekend holding. You can customize all these things on their website and you find a list of the best farms. Be sure to visit Prop Farm Match. The links will be in the video description. Otherwise, let's get back into the video. The second reason you're struggling with bad losers is indiscipline. Indiscipline just means you see the setup very well. You have a playbook. The playbook tells you, for example, don't trade because we have a certain fundamental data being released, but you just choose to be indisciplined and take the trade somehow. Sometimes this might not even be because you're impatient. Indiscipline is just a character which you need to work on. You might have had even the best week. You hit TPs on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, for example. Then on Friday, we have NFP coming. Your playbook tells you it's not the best time to execute, but because you just have the indisciplined character inside you, you still choose to try to take the setup. So this is a clear violation of your trading rules and your playbook. So this is what I always say. Make sure by the time you are taking the setup, you cross-check your rules. Now, as you trade your system for a long time, you get used to it and it's easier for you to be disciplined. But in my early days when I was trying to master my model, even though I had collected data around it and forward tested for a while, in the real market while I was trying to master it, I always had a playbook besides me before I took my trades. So I made a conscious decision that if I don't see everything ticking based on my playbook, I won't take the setup. Another thing you also want to do is journal your trades consistently, record any emotional errors you make for you to understand what is the specific thing I'm struggling with. Again, in discipline, psychology, emotions, all of that is a very broad statement, but you should be able to narrow down and understand what is the specific part of my emotions that keep messing up with me for me to make mistakes in my execution. That is why just generalizing and saying I'm struggling with psychology or indiscipline is never really the best way to look at it, because you won't be in a position to break down what is that specific part of psychology. Is it that I have greed? Is it that I fear to take my trades? Because once you understand the specific thing you're struggling with, with, it's easier for you to now dedicate and focus all your time to mastering that one bit. But when you just generalize and say you're struggling with psychology as a whole, it might mean very many things, and long term you won't be able to tackle the specific problem. So I've given you a couple of tips that can assist you understand why you've been taking bad losses and how to control that. The final part I want to cover when it comes to losses, because basically what we are talking about is just risk management. Most traders, when they hear risk management, they understand things like you need to use a stop loss, you need to use a maybe 1% risk, but that's not all. Even if you use a stop loss and a 1% risk, but you don't get some two other important factors right, which in my opinion they complement risk management, you will still struggle with taking bad losses that you can control. So in risk management, there are 4 pillars. The first one is stop loss, the most basic thing. The second one is risk a meaningful percentage, maybe 0.8 to 1%. Stick to a certain percentage that is minimal enough to allow you to take a couple of losses without coming close to blowing your account, so that when you find your winners, you can recover your losses. That's the second part. The third part of risk management, which is very important and many traders neglect, is consistency with the same risk. See, if you do 1% risk today, 5%, 10% the other day, whether you like it or not, your profit and loss curve can't be linear. And this is what some traders do. Then at the end of the month, they keep wondering why they just never make money in trading. But really, it's because in one setup they risked 1%, in the other setup they risked slightly more. Then when it hits stop loss, it wipes out profits of the last 2 or 3 trades. My recommendation is, if you're using 1% risk, sometimes you might want to change. Myself, there are setups which sometimes I think of changing my risk, either slightly increasing or slightly reducing. But this is how I look at it. If my usual risk is 1%, maybe I can stretch to 1.2, 1.3 if I'm increasing. If I'm decreasing, I can go down to about 0.8%, 0.9%. So this way, if you look at it, I've not stretched my risk bracket so much, such that even if I win or lose, it won't really have a very significant impact on my profit and loss curve. But you can't say the same if you are coming from 1% all the way to doing a 5x risk. Or today you risk 1%, tomorrow you risk 0.1. That's a very, very huge risk bracket, and the wider the bracket, the more inconsistent your monetary gains will be, and this will affect you having a profitable edge in the market. The fourth and final thing about risk management, which complements it all, is having a reasonable risk to reward ratio. You see, even if you use 1% risk, you use a stop loss, you are consistent with the same risk, but your RR is very poor, you're looking for a 1:1 or even less, depending on the type of system you are trading, there's a very high chance you will struggle with controlling your losses. Because another way to control your losses is simply having good risk to reward ratio. So today you lose $1,000, tomorrow you make 3 or 4 times, and easily you've controlled your losses. So in my opinion, if all these 4 things don't complement your risk management, then there's a loophole. You must factor all of them together for you to truly say you're practicing proper risk management. Lacking one alone will mess up with the whole plan. Maybe one important thing I'll mention, I get a question of what is the best percentage risk I should use. For example, someone might ask, I've taken a 10K challenge or a 50K challenge, kindly advise me on the percentage I should be risking per setup. It's a question I get, I think, almost weekly, and this is how I'll answer those type of people. Number one, I'm not in a position to tell you the risk to use, because it's not just dependent on your risk appetite, it's largely dependent on your trading style and what your losing streaks look like. For example, if you take many setups in a day, there's a high chance you might have higher losing streaks than someone who takes 3 setups a month. Which means for a trader like me who takes 3, 4, 5 setups a month, risking 1% is very practical. Because if we are talking in terms of prop firms, you have something called a daily drawdown. Your daily drawdown is basically 5% for most firms. If you're taking a 1 step, it could be 3 or 4%. So before you ask me the risk to use, it's simple mathematics. Look at your data, look at the frequency of the setups you get, how often do they come, then do your math. Also check how your typical losing streak looks like. If you're a scalper and you average 10 setups a day, it's not practical for you to do 1% risk, because if you just lose half or more of those trades at a go, you've already beat your daily drawdown. So you see, if your data shows you average 10 trades a day because you're a short-term trader, it won't be wise for you to be risking 1% and you take 10 trades. There's a very high chance for you breaching the 5% daily drawdown. On the other hand, if the frequency of your setup is distributed in a way that you hardly get that many trades in a day, you see, it would make sense for you to risk 1%. In the recent years, I don't remember breaching a prop firm challenge because of the daily drawdown. Because based on my system, I take like 4 or 5 trades a month. And these trades come like one this week, another setup next week, maybe in a week I might get 2. So at what point will I be losing a 5% within a 24-hour period if I only take 1 or 2 trades in a day? So the risk you'll use is basic mathematics, depending with your data, which is the frequency of the setups, the typical expected losing streak, your maximum allowed daily loss maybe in your prop firm, or what you can't afford to lose for that day, which is basically your risk appetite. So that being said, we come to the end of the video. Hope you guys have learned something in terms of controlling your losses so that you can only take good losers. You should be able to look at your losses, smile, be proud of the fact that you executed that setup, and there's absolutely nothing you can change about it. As long as you can't do that, you're doing something wrong, of which I've given you possible ways to assess yourself and find a solution. Others, I'll see you next time, guys. Peace out.